I trained him. I sat next to that man for 8 months and taught him everything I knew, every system, every client, every shortcut that took me 4 years to learn. I covered for him when he was late. I defended him in meetings when people doubted him. I told my manager, this guy is the real deal. Trust him like you trust me. And he smiled. Every single day, he smiled at me like I was his brother. What I did not know was that the entire time, he was building a file on me, a file full of lies, manipulated emails, twisted timelines, a carefully constructed story that made me look incompetent, unstable, and dangerous to the company. He handed that file to my director on a Tuesday morning. By Thursday afternoon, I was walked out of the building with a box of my belongings and a security guard at my side. 11 years of my life in that company, gone in 48 hours. But here is what that man never considered. Not even for a single second. I am very, very patient, and I had already started counting. Stay with me. Because what I built in the silence after that Thursday was something he never saw coming. My name is Danielle, and before any of this happened, I was the kind of guy who genuinely loved his work. I know that sounds simple, maybe even a little sad to some people, but I mean it. I was not just showing up for a paycheck. I cared. I cared about the clients. I cared about the team. I cared about doing things right. I had been at Meridian Solutions for 11 years. Regional operations firm, mid-size, good reputation, the kind of place where if you put in the work, people noticed. And I had put in the work. Started at the bottom, entry-level analyst. Learned everything from the ground up. Made mistakes early and fixed them fast. By year 4, I was leading my own project teams. By year 7, I was the go-to guy for our 3 biggest client accounts. My director, Howard, used to call me the foundation of the department. That meant something to me. I had a good salary, a house I was proud of, a daughter who was 7 years old and thought her dad walked on water. My wife, Priya, had just gone back to school part-time. We had a plan, a real solid, beautiful plan for where our life was going. Everything was stable. Everything made sense. And then Marcus joined the team. He came in on a Monday in March, 33 years old, sharp dresser, firm handshake, big smile. He had transferred from a competitor across the city and came with a decent resume and a lot of confidence. Howard introduced him to the floor and said, "Daniel, I want you to get Marcus up to speed. Show him how we do things here." I said absolutely, because that is who I was, the guy who said absolutely. Marcus sat next to me for the first 2 weeks just watching and learning. He asked good questions. He took notes. He stayed late a few times without being asked. I thought, okay, this guy is serious. I can work with serious. We started grabbing lunch together, talking about work, about life. He had a son around my daughter's age. We talked about schools, about the city, about where we wanted to be in 5 years. I genuinely liked him. That was my mistake. It started so small. I almost missed it. 6 months in, Marcus started asking questions that felt slightly different. Not about how to do his job, about how I did mine, which clients I handled personally, how I structured my reports, which relationships with vendors I had built directly, how I communicated with Howard outside of regular meetings. I thought he was ambitious, learning from the best. That is what I told myself. I helped him. Every time he asked, I helped him. Then small things started happening at work. A client complained about a project I had managed, said the timeline had been miscommunicated. I was confused because I had sent the timeline document myself and I had it saved. When I pulled it up, the version in the shared system was different from the one I had sent. Subtle. One date changed. One deliverable shifted. I reported it as a system error. Then a vendor called Howard, directly saying I had promised them terms we had never discussed. I had no record of that conversation because it never happened, but somehow there was an email chain with my name on it that suggested otherwise. I was frustrated. I told Howard something was wrong. He looked concerned but said, "Daniel, these things happen. Let us just move forward." I moved forward. Then came the performance review. Howard sat me down and said the last quarter had raised some concerns. Client satisfaction scores on my accounts had dipped. There had been 2 miscommunication incidents, and someone on the team had raised an anonymous concern about my attitude in meetings. My attitude. I had never once raised my voice in 11 years at that company. I sat in that chair and felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not yet. something colder, something that said, "This is not random." I started paying attention differently. I started noticing that Marcus was always nearby when things went wrong, always in the right place to look helpful right after I looked bad, always the one who offered to clean up the mess that he had quietly created. One evening I stayed late. Everyone had gone home. I went to the shared drive and looked through the document history on the files connected to the client complaints. Last, edited by M. Carter, Marcus Carter. My hands went completely still on the keyboard. I sat there in that empty office, and I understood everything. Every lunch, every conversation, every question he had asked me over 8 months. He was not learning from me. He was building a case against me. I closed the laptop. I drove home. I kissed my daughter goodnight. I sat in my kitchen with the lights off, and I made a decision that changed everything. I was not going to confront him. I was not going to go to Howard. I was not going to make a single move until I had everything. Everything. He thought he had won. He had no idea. I had not even started playing. The Thursday they walked me out, I let it happen. I picked up my box. I shook Howard's hand. I thanked him for 11 years. I walked past Marcus in the hallway and looked him directly in the eye and nodded. He nodded back, calm, almost sympathetic. I got in my car. I drove to the end of the parking lot, and I sat there for about 20 minutes, just breathing, because I already had the folder. For 3 weeks before that Thursday, I had been quietly building my own file. I had screenshot every document history showing his edits. I had forwarded emails to my personal account that showed the original versions versus the manipulated ones. I had written a detailed timeline of every incident with dates, times, and the names of anyone else present. I had also done something else. 2 weeks before I was fired, I had called a former colleague who now worked in HR consulting. I told her I believed something was being set up against me at work. I told her I needed to know exactly what a wrongful termination case looked like and what evidence would matter most. She told me everything. So when they walked me out on Thursday, I was not unprepared. I was ready. I hired an employment attorney that Friday morning, a sharp woman named Carol, who had 20 years of corporate litigation experience and the kind of energy that made you feel sorry for whoever was sitting across from her in a deposition. I showed her everything. She looked through it for about 40 minutes. Then she looked up at me and said, "This is not just wrongful termination, Daniel. This is targeted sabotage, and you have the paper trail to prove it. But here's the part that truly ended Marcus. Remember those document histories I had found showing his edits? My attorney subpoenaed the full IT access logs from the company's server. Those logs showed every single file Marcus had accessed, every edit he had made, and every time he had done it from his own login credentials. 11 documented instances of unauthorized file modification on company records, using his own account. He had been so confident, so certain that I would never look, that he had not even bothered to cover his tracks. The legal process took 8 months, 8 months of silence on my end, while Marcus sat in my old desk and handled my old accounts, and probably told himself the whole thing had blown over. The company settled first. They did not want the IT logs going public. They did not want a former 11-year employee standing in front of a jury talking about document manipulation and wrongful termination. Carol made sure they understood exactly what that would look like. The settlement covered lost wages, damages, and a formal written acknowledgement that my termination had been based on false and manipulated evidence. Howard called me personally the day the settlement was signed. He said he was sorry, that he should have listened when I told him something was wrong, that he had been deceived, just like everyone else. I told him I appreciated the call. Then came Marcus. The company had quietly launched an internal investigation once the subpoena hit. The IT logs did not lie. 11 instances, his credentials, his timestamps, his edits on files directly connected to every complaint that had been raised against me. He was terminated within 30 days of the investigation starting, but it did not stop there. 2 of the clients whose accounts he had inherited came back to me directly once word got out about what had happened. They had always worked with me. They trusted me. They did not trust the situation that had unfolded. I had spent those 8 months quietly setting something up, a small independent consulting firm, just me and 2 former colleagues who had reached out after I was let go. We were lean, we were sharp, and we were ready. Those 2 clients became our first contracts. Within 14 months of being walked out of Meridian with a cardboard box, my firm had 6 clients, 3 full-time employees, and a revenue number that made Priya cry at the kitchen table when I showed her. Good tears, the best kind. Marcus, I heard through the industry grapevine, had struggled to find another position after the termination. Word travels in this field, people talk, and when the reason for his firing started circulating quietly through professional networks, doors stopped opening. I did not spread that information. I want to be clear about that. I never once contacted anyone about Marcus directly. I never posted anything publicly. I never made a single call with his name in it. The paper trail did all the talking for me. The truth has a way of moving on its own once you set it free. I want to say something to you directly. If you are in a situation right now where someone is quietly working against you, where things keep going wrong in ways that do not make sense, where you feel like you are being set up but you cannot prove it yet, do not explode, do not confront, do not give them the reaction they are waiting for. Get quiet, get smart, get documentation, because the most powerful thing a man can do when someone is trying to tear him down is build something they cannot touch. Marcus spent 8 months destroying what I had built inside someone else's company. I spent 8 months building something that was entirely mine. He targeted the wrong man, not because I was stronger than him or smarter than him in any obvious way, but because I was patient, and patience in the right hands is the most dangerous weapon in the world. Document everything, trust carefully, and never let them see you sweat, because the moment they think you are finished is exactly when you begin. Every betrayal has a price, and the verdict is always served. If this story hit different, subscribe to Dark Verdict. A new story drops every week, and the next one is even darker than this.